If you've never read any of Alan Watts's books, I highly recommend them. Alan Watts. Particularly one of the books that I read many moons ago that was really an eye-opener was called The Wisdom of Insecurity by Alan Watts. Basically, in this book, he's talking about the fact that insecurity is seen to be a negative experience. However, there is a wisdom involved in insecurity in the sense that if you're insecure, it means you're not secure, and if you're not secure, it means that you don't you don't assume that you know everything. So you're insecure. And there's wisdom in insecurity, because in insecurity, you're accepting the unpredictability of it all. You're allowing yourself to experience the truth. And while it may occur as insecurity, at the same time, there is a very fulfilling experience involved of uncertainty and insecurity. To be uncertain and insecure is to be awake to the truth. One way of talking about life in this context is that when you're awake, life occurs like a free fall. The only difference between this free fall and the free fall that we normally understand to be a free fall is this free fall has no ground. It's just free fall, free fall, free fall. Insecurity, uncertainty. And yet this form of insecurity and uncertainty is fulfilling. It's exciting. It's interesting not to know. One of the ways they talk about the awake state is they say it's a don't know state. It's a don't know state. It's a beginner's mind. You're open to see things as they are, not keep looking at things and understanding them, not keep looking at things and thinking that you know what's going on. That's a conditioned mind, looking at things and thinking that you know what's going on. If you don't know what's going on, then you're open to all the possibilities that may be there that you wouldn't see if you thought you did know what was going on. Because if you thought you did know what was going on, you're not looking for anything because you already know what's going on. That's the typical human life. People walk around. That's why people are not doing self-inquiry. Self-inquiry means that you are dealing with the question, what am I? It's not something that people do because they don't have a question, what am I? You know, everybody's already secure in the understanding of their identity. And that security in the understanding of the identity is a mistake, a very costly mistake. Because it means that you will continue to operate as if you are your personality. Like Ramana Maharshi said, there is a condition in which human beings live. And that condition is a condition in which there is a assumption, or there is a condition in which there's been an acceptance of your identity and acceptance of reality that is a function of agreement. We all are who we agree we all are, aren't we? It is the way we agree it is, don't we? Yeah. And in spite of the fact that the evidence is there to be seen, that that's not so, that's not true. And it's the reason that there's a lot of suffering. It's the reason that there's a lot of conflict, because human beings are trying to experience something that's not happening. Human beings are trying to experience a life that doesn't exist. Yeah, a life of thinking, a life of emotional reaction, a life of disturbance, a life of hope. Everybody hopes things will work out. And according to the teachings, one of the things that is necessary in order to support you in being awake and seeing things as they are, according to the teachings say abandon hope. Abandon hope. There is no such thing as hope. Hope is this wishful idea about reality. We hope things will work out. Things happen the way they happen. Hope has nothing to do with it. So if you're spending time hoping, you're just wasting time. It has nothing to do with it. It's much better to get in touch with the truth. It's much better to get in touch with the way things are really happening. And then you don't have to hope about anything. You can just be with what's so. It's better to be realistic than to be optimistic, hopeful, or any other fool. It's better to be realistic. A lot of people say that the teachings could be described as training in reality. Yeah, training in reality. To see things as they are. It's not a bad thing, by the way. You know, to see things as they are is much better than the alternative. It's much better than seeing things the way you think they are. It's much better than seeing things the way you feel they are. It's much better than that, because the truth is that you're free and you're happy and you're peaceful and you're satisfied. That's the truth. What you really are is peaceful, happy, and satisfied. That's the truth. So that's much better than the version or the story that people are living their lives in which none of that's true. It's none of that true. It's not true that you're happy, satisfied, and peaceful. That's what thinking gives. That's what thinking leaves. That's where thinking leaves you. You know, it leaves you wanting. It leaves you yearning. It leaves you longing. It leaves you seeking. Because the situation is not comfortable to live life that way. It's not a comfortable way to live life. You're at odds with reality. You see yourself as separate from everything and everybody, and you have to be concerned. If that's the truth, you have to be concerned. You got 8 billion people to deal with. Reality that is reality does not require thought. Does not require thinking, does not require thought. That's why we're practicing meditation the way we're practicing it, is to come away from that, to experience the fact that our true nature as awareness knows what's going on. This is something that's very important to understand, is that we've given consciousness a bad name. But see, you're in thinking trying to get what I'm talking about. Yeah, you can't get it in thinking. That's why we're practicing not thinking. You can't get it in thinking. That's what's so hard about this for so many people, is the only thing you know how to do is think. And thinking doesn't work here in this practice. And so the more your life is a thought process, the less this makes sense to you. So you try and think your way into it. You can't think your way into the truth. The truth doesn't require thought. The truth is just the way it is. What you're aware of is what you know, and what you're aware of doesn't require thought. You are aware of your existence. It's the truest thing you're aware of, is it not? Isn't it existence? The fact that you exist, isn't that the truest thing you're aware of? And you know that, don't you? Without thought. Don't you know it without thought? Don't you know you're here without thinking about it? Yeah, well, so that would be an entry point then. You know, if you know you're here without thinking about it, that would be an entry point to reality. To allow that's why I said before we did the practice, don't try and meditate. Don't do anything. Don't make an effort. All of those things are part of the world of thinking and doing. Right? This is not part of the world of thinking and doing. This is prior to that. This is beyond that. This is more immediate than that, right? The experience you're having of being aware is more immediate than thinking. No, you're not thinking. See, Brian, you're not thinking, your mind's thinking, and if you think that's you thinking, then you're also the personality that has you be, and get ready for suffering. Thinking, of course thinking is happening, but that doesn't mean you're thinking. That's part of the teaching, is the voice in your head is not you. Thinking is always happening. That doesn't mean you're thinking, unless you think you're thinking, and that's thinking. Well, that's one way it's talked about in Buddhism. They call it dukkha in Buddhism. And the word dukkha in Sanskrit means dissatisfaction. So if you live a life in which you allow yourself to cling or to be attached to what's happening, you experience a state of dissatisfaction. That's not satisfying because it doesn't work. It leaves you wanting. It leaves you in a state of desire. That was the first noble truth, right? The source of suffering is desire, according to the Buddha. The source of suffering is desire. So you could talk about suffering in a lot of different ways, but it has to do with the idea that there is this sense of discontent. It can be more intense than just discontent, but that's the bottom line, you know, that there is this sense of discontent. Wishing things were different, hoping things get better. The awareness, when you experience your true nature, the awareness that you are, and if you experience it and you get into a practice of it that lends itself to consistency, right? The idea of clinging or attachment just dissolves. Awareness is not attached to anything. Is the space in this room attached to anything? No. And that's a perfect metaphor for consciousness. Consciousness is not attached to anything. It's watching a movie. It's not attached to anything that's happening in that movie. If you get attached to something that's happening in that movie, right, then you turn that into something that you're going to try and hold on to and keep. That's why suffering happens so consistently in this world for people, because everybody's trying to get security. Everybody's trying to make something stay, right? Impermanence is the reality of the universe. Impermanence is the essence of reality. Everything's changing all the time. So if everything's changing all the time and you try and stop that, you're going to suffer. If you get used to the experience of it being that way, it's not a problem. It's only when you have this naive notion that you should be in control. It's only when you have this naive notion that you should try and stop time, that you should try and control what's happening. We do a lot of things to attempt to do that. That's what marriage is, an attempt to stop the other person from leaving, to stop time, to control the situation. Right? I highly recommend, if you want ways and means to approach this, meditation is obviously a practice to approach this, right? But headlessness is also a practice to approach this. And I highly recommend getting involved in the practice of headlessness. It's not, a lot of people think headless, that the Headless Way, that's a website, right? A lot of people think headlessness is a novelty, a parlor game. No, it's not. No, you're experiencing headlessness right now. Can you see your head? The only way you know your head's there is either from a mirror or somebody telling you it's there. But there is an experience of awareness happening here. It's really happening here. There's an experience of awareness happening here. You're looking at the back of your eyeballs and you call that the universe. You never see any universe. All you see is the back of your eyeballs. That's all you ever see. The first book I wrote, The Enlightenment Made Easy, was about headlessness. I used to go to these meetings on Zoom with Richard Lang years ago, right? And we'd all get on from all over the world, have somebody from Japan, have somebody in Hawaii, have somebody in Africa, have somebody in Europe, Richard's in London, people all over the United States. You get on there and there'd be about 20 people on. And during that time together, Richard would start talking about headlessness and kind of bring headlessness to the forefront, and everybody in the meeting was starting to experience headlessness and talk about what they were experiencing. It's really cool. And to me, it made such a huge difference that I ended up, writing a book, and that's why I entitled the book what I called it, Enlightenment Made Easy. Headlessness is enlightenment made easy. All you got to do is practice looking through your eyeballs.